Well, welcome back to another episode of the Highway Kids Team podcast. You're here with your two favourites. You're here with Brendan
and Danica.
Yay! And we're going to have a great time today. We are talking about the topic, or the title of this episode is called Loved and Known. How do we make families feel loved and known at church? But how's your day going, Danica? You doing good?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm having a good day. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, you can comment below how your day's going. If you listen to this through your audio, you can just answer me. How's your day going? Oh, that's great. Yeah.
I love that.
So we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about ways and strategies that we can make people feel just more loved and just seen. I think is the biggest thing. And in church, not just being an extra number, but being seen. I think is really important. So I'm going to start with a story. Yep. Story time.
Okay, listen closely.
Everyone listen
Gather
closely.
around.
Sit on the mat. Sit on the mat. No, we're not going to the toilet right now. No, we're not doing the toilet there. So the story. So we're in the new family on Sunday. Brand new family. They've been coming for a couple of weeks, right? And this family, they've been to lots of different churches, and they talked to us. I was talking to them. And they were talking about how they've never felt more seen or more felt like a family church. This church has never felt more like family. That they came and they just felt that they were like, they came for the first time, which, first day, you're feeling nervous, they come. They also came to a families in the park thing that we had. They met some people. What was powerful was the second week. Mm-hmm. They came back. And people remembered them, remembered their names. They said hello. Even they met our senior pastors, Pastor B, Pastor Brendan, and they met with our campus pastor, Pastor Caleb, and they just felt seen. They hadn't been in a church where, even a senior pastor had seen them. They were in a church before that, it was like a global sort of senior pastor, and they'd never met their own senior pastor. And it's just an amazing story of the church has never felt this much like family. And we are home. Yep. We are home and we are a part of it straight away. And we want to get involved. We want to get in connect groups. And instantly, from just coming for 2 Sundays, they found their church home they're already connected in. Obviously, really early in the story, we don't know what's going to happen there. But you know what? I think it's a great reminder of first-time experiences are really important, but also second-time experiences. Yeah. So, with that story, Danica, let's reflect on this story. How important is it to make people feel seen?
Yeah, I think it's huge. And we had quite a similar experience when we first came to Highway. From the get-go, Pastor Steve and Julianne, they knew us every week. And we were just coming here to visit before we even came down. Yeah. And so it'd be weeks between when we'd come back again till we came down here. But the idea that, even though, it is quite a large church, there's a lot of people, but the fact that people just, I think knowing people's names is huge. And just remembering parts about, knowing you had a conversation with them and then being able to come back in and feel like people actually, people care about them and, they want to know you and they want, to have you a part of this family, I think is huge. And it makes such a big difference for families. And I think particularly when it comes to their kids, so often, I talk to parents and families and they'll choose a church and a place, anything, a school, a community group, whatever it might be, based on the experience that their kids have, and knowing that their kids are loved and safe and in a place where they belong is number one for people when they're trying to find a place to be. So I think that we have such a really huge critical job in that and a role in that, but also such a privilege and an honor to be a part of that, and knowing that we can make that experience for someone by what we do as a team on a Sunday.
Yeah, cool. I feel like we do talk about it quite a bit. I just panicked. I am recording. Sorry, I panicked for a second. Just I'm like, did I hit the button? I did.
Do this whole thing and there's nothing.
No, I think it's something we talk about a lot. But I think it's something that can sometimes go unnoticed, the effect of how important it is, and how basic this is. It is really just connecting with people and remembering them and making them feel seen. So we're going to go through each age group and even each space in our kids' ministry, and where we can not just improve, but like as in what strategies we can do to really make people feel loved and known. I think where do we want to start? Because there's a few different ones. Because it goes from that parents connection team, like the check-in team to start.
Yep.
And then there's also things that we can do in each room. So everyone has, I think, first of all, this is everyone's responsibility.
Yes.
This isn't just one person. This isn't just Brendan at the front who has to know everyone. I think it's everyone, like the kids and the families that come into your room, in your space. You're responsible for knowing them and making them feel loved. So where do we want to start? Do we want to start with check-in?
Yeah, I guess if we start from there and then work our way through the age groups, I feel like that's a good start.
Okay, tips and tricks for... Check-in's always one of those things where it's a great space to remember names.
Yes.
Especially if you're typing in names. I know we've got self-check-in now. But sometimes even typing in names as you get to know people.
And that's a huge thing for for parents there, and you're like, oh, this is, and you know the last name already to type in, and they're like, we've only been here twice. Like, that's a huge thing for them. Like, oh, you remember, and names are so hard for me. So it is like something that you do. I feel like I eat good with kids' names, but then parents and last names, I'm like, how do I do this again? But it...
What's your name? I feel like I saw this like a meme on Instagram the other day, and it was just like, how kids leaders know parents' names. Yeah. It's like, it's Josh's mum. Yeah,
that's me every time. I'm like, oh, I really need to do better.
It's Amelia's dad.
I need to do better at knowing their names. But I think that, names, again, I know we've already mentioned it, that's a huge key thing. And I think just being able to, even if you don't know that or you're not there yet, I know when I first started on check-in, I didn't know a lot of the older kids because I'm usually in, the early childhood scene. But it was just kind of that, just a huge welcome and how are you going and asking them questions about their day or school. Those key things of oh, hey, we're coming up to the end of school term. Ask them about what have they got planned for holiday. Things like that. So you don't have to know everything about everyone to still make them feel welcomed and noticed and you actually genuinely care rather than just being like, okay, check in, off you go. Being able to have that some form of thinking, what can I ask this kid, or what can I, talk to this parent about, just being intentional about those things.
Yeah, I feel like at Olmo, we're in the process of developing our parents connection team. And we've been adding some more people to that recently. It's been really awesome. Shout out to all those amazing people who've joined that team recently. It's been really cool. But we're trying to develop it into more of a, not just transitioning kids into church, but transitioning kids into kids' church, but transitioning parents as well, and creating more connection with parents, because a parent can just drop off their kid and just leave and never have that connection. So to make parents feel like they're seen as well, and having those parents be on the team to be the ones connecting, I think is really important. So that's been a really cool part. I think making it getting down to kids' levels at check-ins is always really good, but also welcoming, having that balance as well. It's I feel like this is a few years ago now, but I remember I said hello to a kid. I was like, hey, how you doing? Got down to his level, and the mum was like, I'm here too. And I was like...
Stand up. Hey, how you doing?
It was sort of like a funny joke, but also...
oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Don't forget that.
Hey, how are you? I think we can fall into the trap of that too.
Yeah.
It's welcoming parents, looking them in the eye. I know that's that's a very intense, very basic, fundamental, but looking people in the eye, shaking their hands, saying hello, welcome to church, so glad to have you today.
Sometimes you did a great job. You're here.
You're here. Well
you can tell they're frazzled and they're whatever.
Anyone who arrives after 15 minutes after after the service starts, the language changes. You go, welcome. You've made it. Yes. Good job. You did this.
Go and enjoy the service. All those sorts of things.
Yeah. So I think those sort of keys, I think just being so intentional and aware. I think sometimes in check-in a line is also fine if we have people connecting with that line.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want to try and get that as smooth and efficient as possible.
And it's got to be a balance between obviously having to work the tech and getting it done, which is why that team's so crucial and what we're building there to be able to have the both and both sides of it.
I love being able to print off labels, seeing a family coming, check them in. and hand it to them. That's a really cool way of doing
they're
it
like,
too.
oh, you saw us, you knew us, you know, you were ready to go.
Yeah, so I don't know, those things, like I said, really key. I think their first impressions, especially like I was saying, that second week experience where you come back, you feel known. I think the first time they're filling out their details, the second time being so much smoother as well, and that's great as well. But yeah, I think it's hard sometimes because if like someone came for the first time on week A, they come back the next week, usually it's a different team because we've got like fortnightly teams. So you may be conscious of that as well on those teams. Like any team, it's like someone could have had a first week last week and I don't know them.
Yes.
Go the extra mile to get to know someone. Like, hey, you don't know me. It's my first time meeting you.
Yes.
Even sometimes when I feel like, it's like, oh, is it, like asking a question, is it your first time today? And they go, oh, actually, we've been coming for 3 months. Yeah. That can be sort of a distinct question. Like, I think the question, how long have you been coming to Highway, is a great question. Because it's like, oh, it's my first day. Or, oh, I've been coming for 3 months. Or, I have met you there. My name's Brendan. So excited to talk to you today. Yeah. So those little practicals can help. Any more little practicals for check-in?
That's pretty good. And I think just obviously the more we can, especially like new families, and just answering any questions and making sure they feel really comfortable, make sure we're transitioning them well to the rooms. That's a really key thing too. I know, again, like sometimes it's crazy, but they don't want to just like walk through and be like, oh, your room's over there. You know what I mean? To actually walk through and introduce people. You know, yesterday I was helping a family come through and being able to, you know, talk to the child, and I found out where they went to school, and I was like, oh, of course we got a lot of kids from that school, and like being able to walk them into the room and being like, I'll introduce you to a leader, and then as soon as they walked in, they saw someone they knew from school too, so you were able to make that connection. I introduced them to a leader as well too, and being able to, I think that's like key wherever we can as well too, for new families, or even just families who seem a little, there might still be kids who are a little bit shy, you know, if we can sort of help transition, you know, and help that process as well too. And just if you have the opportunity to be like, hey, do you want me to walk you into your room, or, you know, something like that, making sure that they kind of don't get lost in that transition period there is.
Sure. I think that, those are key moments where we can nail those, hand off to the team leader or the leader in the room.
So they know that they're new, or it's their second time, or they're a little bit nervous, or they're a little bit shy, so the team leader or someone in that team is aware of, being able to kind of keep an eye on them, I think is great.
I'm going to break it down this next section into early childhood and school-age kids. Because it's handy, because also at Gilson there's only those two spaces. But almost obviously early childhood is foundations and priorities, and then school-aged is adventurers, primary, and junior leadership. So break it down there. What do you want to tackle first?
You know, early childhood is...
We'll go early childhood. We're going to go early childhood.
It makes sense, all right? Let's do the math.
We'll go from up. Okay, so early childhood. What do you think is really important to make... Because in this space in particular, it's about making parents feel safe.
Yes.
That they've dropped these young kids off under the age of 5, especially in 1 to 2 year olds for this. But how do we make parents feel safe, and how do we make them feel loved upon?
I think obviously, like you said, acknowledging both the child and the parent when they come in, just to make sure, you know, like, and again, knowing the child and their name, being able to do that, have the parent come through. I think, obviously parents at this, like with kids of this age, usually want to have a bit of a chat to you, and a little bit, you know, sometimes by the time they're in primary, they, you know, don't even walk them in, and they're like, you're fine, you know, like chuck them through the door. But at this age, they usually at least want to be acknowledged, even if you're in, you know, I know quite often in prodigies, you'll be in play with some other children. And even if they're children who come in and transition well, like parents are looking to have that some sort of a response, like that you've spotted them in the door. You might not even have to get up, or you might, you know, depending on what, you know, child it is, how long they've been coming, but just so that every parent knows that you've spotted them, their kids coming in the door, I'm aware of it, I say hello, you know, so for even those kids that have been coming for ages, it's just a look up and go, hey, how you going? Oh, you know, great, you know, and make sure they get involved in play, just so that they are aware that you've seen their child and you know that they're there. I think particularly for younger parents and, you know, first time or those first few times, making sure that you're like asking questions of the parents about their child, that really shows that like you care about that, like being like, oh hey, you know, we do they have any allergies, we do like a snack, and it's probably on the tag, you know what I mean, but asking that makes them feel like confident in you. Asking that, being like, oh, you know, oh, you've got a bag, you can put it here, do they have a water bottle, are you happy for them to, you know, we've got water here, just really like introducing the room, giving them a rundown of if they, you know what I mean, want to know what's happening in the room, asking what things they like, especially kids who are really nervous coming in. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, do they like, you know, books? Do they like, you know, dolls? Something like that. Just asking those questions really gives parents that confidence that they're not just going to leave their kid and you know, you don't know what you're doing, but really knowing that, oh, okay, they're thinking about this. They're knowing, you know what I mean? They're trying to do their very best for our kids. I think that gives parents a whole lot of confidence, which is the first thing in them leaving their kids, because it can be a rough thing with those little kids.
For sure.
They might cry, they might, you know what I mean? Asking those questions as well too, of like, hey, you know what I mean, how do you think they're going to go at drop off? Sometimes it'll be parents, how do you want to do this? Do you just want to drop and go even if they're crying, and I'll message you, you know, how long would you like me to leave it before I let you know? Like all these sorts of things, just really making sure that it's on the parents' terms and they feel the most comfortable. Because you might have parents who are like, I want you to call me the minute, you know, they get upset or something happens, or other parents will be like, oh, they do this at kindy, they're, you know what I mean, they're fine, or anything like that. So just having those already knowing the answers to those questions once you go into things, I think is really, really key for parents. And then just being interested in them, like you said as well too, you know what I mean? Like it's not just all about their child, but you know what I mean? Asking them those sorts of things. How long have you been at Highway? Like getting into conversations about what they do, or you know what I mean? At the end of the service, how was the service? Like really actually, you know, being interested in a part of their lives as well too.
I feel like a way that we can think about this as well is like, while that seems like a lot of questions to ask, I think that's actually a time-saving strategy in the long run. Of like, if a parent comes in and has a negative experience, then especially like if their kid's like 1 to 2, and then they take them back into like the parents' room, and they're with their kid for another year in the parents' room, or even longer sometimes. That 5 to 10 minute conversation you have, maybe on their first time or second time or third time, whatever, it can actually help. Like, if there's that, or there's a year of still being with your kid in the service. Yeah. And I feel like that's so much more worth it, and that is more confidence building.
Yes. And I think you can tell sometimes if they're not, you know what I mean, the parents who want to, if you open up that conversation and they're like, oh, they're fine, not really interested, you don't have to, but you can usually feel out the parents who are like wanting to know and really sort of nervous. And I think it also like helps us make sure it's a good experience. Like if I ask that question about what does your kid enjoy, like even if it's like songs, do they like the Wiggles, whatever, you know what I mean? So if they are upset, I was like, I automatically know, hey, I've got something that I can do, you know what I mean? Or if we're not really sure, you know what I mean, what they want to get engaged in, already knowing that like saves us so much in our service of having to be like, oh, I don't know how to settle this child, I don't know, you know, questioning that, should I contact a parent, should I not, things like that. I think it really does help you and them in the long run to sort of break that down.
This is really important for our whole team to know in that space, because maybe the team leader is doing a lot of these conversations, but you as a team member in that space, like maybe you're not having those conversations, but you can know the type of conversations that are happening and why it's so important to be so active when kids first enter the room, and to give space for the team leaders to be doing those conversations. You know, you can obviously build up the courage as well to start having these conversations. Well, like even just like some of the basics, like how's your kid gone this week? What was something awesome? Like, you know, just asking questions, like we were saying, like just encouraging families, and just the more communication, you can bridge assumptions with communication. Like parents might walk in, and you may be a young person like on team, but if you're sitting in the corner not being very attentive, then parents will be like, oh, well, I'm not going to feel safe with my kid dropping off. But if you're with them there straight away, like, oh my gosh, little Johnny's coming, I can't wait to hang out with little Johnny today. How was his week this week? You know, like, oh, he hasn't been sleeping. Oh, that sucks. Well, I hope you have a great service, and, you know, he's going to have a great time here. Like, you can bridge those assumptions by being over the top with your communication.
Yeah, and I think so many of the young people in our rooms, like our childhood rooms, can do that, and very easily just if you know the child and you say hello to the child, and it's just walking up. Do you want to give him a cuddle, or do you want to come play with me here? Like those are some really simple. Like you said, you might not get into the whole conversation yet with a parent or something like that, but just being able to go, hey, do you want me to take him, or do you know what I mean? And again, remembering something from their from them in the past, like, oh, I know you really love the kitchen, like let's, or I remember you really liked playing with the, action figures, whatever it was, something like that. When you know those things, it makes that so much easier to just bridge that gap and to be like, hey, I've got, or we got this really cool toy today. Like, let's, kind of look at that.
Let's talk about the post-service, the pickup, because a lot of this has been on the drop-off part of the process. The post-service, as leaders, I feel like we should have one thing to say about each kid for when their parents pick them up. And I want you to talk about that, and then I've got some ideas around how loving kids includes talking to parents about their misbehaviour as well. But let's talk about having something good to say.
And that's always the first thing if you ever have to talk about anything difficult. Talk about the good first.
But like, how do you make yourself conscious of saying one thing at the end of the sentence?
I think that actually having that in your mind is actually a really good thing that helps you be intentional, because so often we do get consumed in, particularly if you're as a team leader and you're kind of running the room and there's so many other things that you're focusing on, it is easy for kids to slip through the cracks. And it's always coming from, working in education as well too. It's usually the kids who are quiet and, just doing their thing, that quite often I could get to the end of a day in, what I mean, working in childcare and be like, I don't remember what you did today. Like, you were here. Like,
were you here?
I was like, what happened? You know what I mean? And it is easy for some of those kids to slip through the cracks. But I think if I have in my mind when I go into a service that I'm going to talk to these parents at the end of the service and I've got to have something to say, that helps me to be more intentional and to notice those things. And it doesn't have to be anything like groundbreaking or, you always have those few things of, oh, this kid prayed for the first time. That's awesome. But it might just be like, oh, they really enjoyed their coloring. You know what I mean? Like that might just be the general thing, or they were playing with somebody else today and that's cool. So like, it doesn't have to be groundbreaking, amazing things, but knowing those things and being able to say, yeah, they really loved playing in the kitchen today, they would do a cooking, you know what I mean? Something like that, just having something that you've seen, or, like praise and worship was awesome, they really enjoyed this, or they had, asked me this question, or just things like that, and actually like noticing. Once you put that in your mind of like, hey, I want to talk to these parents afterwards, then, and even if it just starts with just a couple, you know what I mean? Just be like, okay, I want to talk, because you can't always talk to every parent, you know what I mean? And it's good to have something for every parent, but if you even just go, okay, I'm going to try 3 kids today, you know what I mean? And maybe not the kids that you typically notice, just be like, okay, even when they walk in the door, be like, okay, today, you know what I mean? I want to make a connection with you, and I want to, particularly obviously when you've got like new kids or kids who might be a bit nervous coming in, like those are always ones I pick to make sure that I have something when parents come back. But yeah, even kids who have been here for a long time, just go, okay, today I'm going to look at these 3 or 4 kids and I really want to make sure I've got something intentional to have a chat to a parent afterwards. Because again, that shows, parents that you've noticed that their child is there, which is a big thing, and that they're not just a part of the crew, they are actually, you see them as an individual and as somebody valuable and not just a number in your service. So those things are so much. And even if it's the same as saying a general statement, like we've, praise and worship was awesome today, but saying your child really enjoyed, that just changes it from, it was just a group activity to you actually saw my child. So I think that's... For
sure. Yeah, because you can be in an environment where like all the kids are doing the craft. I was like, oh, that's awesome. But yeah, personalizing that thing.
And even if you say that thing to every parent, you know what I mean? Because every kid loved it. But being able to specifically say, you know what I mean? That was, and, I complimented the kid on their, drawing or something today. Like that just really, as a parent, you're like, oh, wow. Like they, you know what I mean? They saw me and they...
Especially if you've got a big, full room as well sometimes. And I think some of the parents like leave being like, oh... there's a lot of kids there today. But if they leave going, there's a lot of kids, but my kid was like individually cared for.
Yes.
I think that's what all parents are looking for. They're looking for their kids to be individually cared for. And that's an awesome thing. Like,
Yes.
that's great. So we want to be able to provide that. And we do. I think it's just about communicating that we do.
And that's the thing. And when you're intentional with that, it shows. Because
Yeah.
parents are only there for, and we talk about this all the time, parents are not there for your whole service. They're never going to see everything that you do and everything that you put into,
Yep.
you know, developing their kids and being a part of their lives. But they see these little snapshots, and that's where we have to make that the most impact that we have. So they need to, you know what I mean? Because if they were in your service, they probably see all of those little interactions that you have with their kids, but they're not seeing that. So if they're seeing a hectic drop off because, you know, it's free play, everyone's having fun, which is great, you know what I mean? And then they're seeing whatever it is at the end we're doing, if you're in small, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like that's all they're seeing. They are relying on you to share, especially for their young children who can't communicate for themselves very well. Like that's a huge thing as well too. When you have kids who, once you're sort of getting into prodigy's age or, you know, 3 to 5 year olds a little bit more, but even then, who knows what a 4-year-old's saying half the time, you know, like, to be honest. But for those, like that's a big thing, you know, for like when you're in primary, my kid can come home and tell me how things went and they can tell me how they loved it and whatever. But some of those younger kids can't. So having that piece of communication just goes such a long way with parents.
Yes. All right. Johnny's had a bad service.
Difficult conversations. Yes.
Johnny, he's been a bit of a terror. And look, you've followed all the protocols. You know, he did calm down. But there was a moment where it disrupted everyone. Now, sometimes there is a tendency to avoid these conversations because it's like, oh, okay, like I don't want to have to talk to that parent about their kids or whatever. But I think this is a great opportunity to show that we love kids through their mistakes. So how would you go about a tough conversation? Johnny, he wanted like a... We don't need a specific example. I was going to be like, he pulled someone's hair out. But it's very wild. That's probably more serious.
I've seen it happen, but it happens. I think first of all, a few key things I'd say. One, that's really something like as team leaders we should be handling. So if you're a team leader in a room, if you're a team member, that's not usually your responsibility. So if you do see things like that, go and speak to your team leader, make sure they know, just because they obviously sort of have that experience, should have that relationship, and that, you know, gives them much opportunity as the person running the room to have those conversations. And if you're a team leader, maybe a new team leader or someone, you know what I mean, and you're not sure, like get one of us in, you know what I mean? If you can, if you know it's going to be a conversation and you're not sure how to bridge that, like it is something that we just learn as you go along. So whether you need to grab Brendan or you need to grab me or somebody else to just go, hey, can you just be here and help me, you know, with this conversation? That's really key too. But I think you're right in that. These are conversations that we need to be having. I would say when it's something particularly sort of like a first time something is happening, or you know what I mean, that it might not even be, it's not a huge deal. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes we do have that tendency to go, oh, well, you know, that Sunday's done. We'll just go on. It might not be a big thing. I always say bridge those little things with families, not in a huge serious way. You know what I mean? So if it is, he was pulling hair, I would just, you know what I mean? First of all, you want to always have something good to say as well too. Like we don't just go in with a negative. That's not...
He had a tight grip on him. That's pretty impressive. He did rip hair out.
But that's not our job. Is
Fine motor skills he's got.
Right. Let me rate it. But I would always say, usually, like, and obviously, if you're going through these protocols, we're actually finding out from the kid what's going on. You know what I mean? It wasn't just you did that, you know, that's, you know, and now we got to talk to your parent. Like, you want to be talking to the kid and finding out what's going on, or you want to, you would have seen something happening, like they've just come in a bad mood. They're just not having it. They're like, whatever. So to be able to talk that through with a parent and just like, I usually will bring up first, second, those sorts of things, unless it's something super serious, in just like a less serious manner, in a way of just being like, hey, so today I noticed, you know, little Johnny was feeling quite cranky when he came in. He didn't really want to interact with people. He might have kind of, you know, taken himself away to the cushions, something like that. He just seemed a little bit off. And then in the middle of the service, we had a little moment where he got upset about X, Y, Z and, you know, pulled somebody else's hair. And just like and it's like, I'm just letting you know, like, this is not there's no consequences from this. This is not
Yeah, we can't wait to hear
serious
next
thing.
week what you did to him.
Yes, you know what I mean?
yeah.
This is not a, well, he's not welcome. This is none of those things. It's just that being able to be like, hey, I just want you to know, like, this is what happened. Especially if you've had to speak to a child, like, about their behavior, then that's just something a parent should know. You know what I mean? Because again, it's not like, you don't want to have that moment with a kid and then for a parent not to know about those things. So just to be able to, and it doesn't have to be, it can feel like a really heavy moment and a big thing. But I think that, yeah, it's just, the way I approach it is just like, it's not a super serious thing. It's just a, hey, letting you know they didn't have a great day today. Even if you don't go into specifics and that's not, you know what I mean? Like, they really just seem like they're having a tough time today. Like, obviously when it's getting to like hurting other people or those sorts of things, and you're like, or if you have to sort of, I did have to ask him to sit over here for a little while, like talking those things through so the parents are aware, but just making sure that they know it's just, we're just here to work with you and partner with you. And it's not really, it's not even the same as like perhaps a school setting or something where like we have, you know what I mean? That there are like consequences or there are things that we are doing. It's really just about, hey, all your like kids are welcome here. Kids are going to have behaviors. They're going to have different things that happen. That's just a part of what we do, and making sure that parents are aware that this is not a negative thing. This is not something that we're, you know, have an issue with their child, but I just want you to know, like, he really seemed to be having a tough time today, or, you know, something like that. And always addressing it like the child's struggling with something or having a difficult time, not that they're just a terror. Because
you have a bad child.
Yes, that is, you know what I mean?
Not what to say.
Because when we look at child development and things like that, or, you know what I mean, all these behaviors are a form of communication, and they're a way that kids are actually, they don't know how to express themselves properly, particularly at that young age. They don't know how to accurately tell you, I didn't sleep last night and I'm just having a really rough day, or I'm really upset about something, and that's how they come out. So approaching it from, we're here to support you and your child. We don't think that they're a terrible child. I just want to let you know it looked like they had an off day today, or they were really struggling with something, or this came out and I just wanted you to know. And then being able to finish up and go, you know, we're so excited to see him next week and we really want to, you know what I mean?
Cool.
And try to finish with positive as well too. Like, so it's not... So we never want parents walking away going, oh my gosh, I can't bring my child here. You know what I mean? And being a parent of spirited children, let's say that, who has a lot of these conversations with, you know, teachers and educators.
You're on the other
side.
Like
that. I've got both sides. That's not something, you know what I mean, you want to have. And particularly when it is, if you want to say those children who might have a lot of those things, those parents are having a lot of those conversations. And we want to be different to other places. We want that. We want them to see that we love and we care for them, and that we're not just here to come down on the behavior, or we don't want their children here, or we're trying to, you know, create a distance there. We really want to be the place where they walk away and go, okay, my kid can come here. Like, these things happen, they're struggling, or things have happened, but I know that I can trust this team with them, and that they actually value and love them through whatever they're going through.
Oh, I feel this could have been.
Sorry,
no. Because I feel like because I feel like I got like so many questions about this. We may come back to this because I feel like I've got some stories from like holiday adventures, the old West days. But I think there were moments there that were good examples and bad examples of that. But maybe we'll come back to that because I feel like there's a lot to that. But I do think it's a way that we can make kids and parents feel loved.
Yes.
I won't go into the story, but I remember a kid had a really bad day at Holiday Adventures. At the end of it, it was like, your behaviour today wasn't acceptable. It wasn't okay. You know that. But I want to let you know that I forgive you, and I can't wait to see you again.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, next week, tomorrow's a new day. You know, like that kind of a thing of like, that's never going to... The behaviour here doesn't affect our relationship with children and families, and I think that's key. That this is literally, this is a place where they are unconditionally loved, regardless. And yes, we have to say these are things. There are consequences to actions. There are, you know what I mean. There are things that are acceptable and unacceptable. Sometimes you have to call parents in. Sometimes, you know what I mean. If there are levels to those behaviours, there are things that have to happen. But at no point does that mean that we value their children any less, or that they are not welcome and they are not, you know.
That's why we have the importance, and as we transition into talking about primary now, the importance of maintaining what highway kids' culture is.
Yes.
Like we have a strong culture of, like, you know, in primary, in school age rooms, we don't have kids swear. We don't have kids that like abuse each other, like you know, so like verbally abuse each other, physically abuse each other as well. We don't sort you know, we talk through our problems. We have a standard of like, you know, we praise and worship together. You know, we sit down, we respect one another, we respect the leader that's teaching us. You know, like these are the things that I think are just like when we have a strong culture within Highway Kids, especially in those school age rooms, I think. Then when you have kids that come in and they have no church experience, they're at least understand. Any kid can walk in and understand, okay,
context.
This is what this is.
Yes.
You know, they may push those boundaries. Like I've seen kids like swear, and then I tell them, I hate that. That's not how we talk here. Then they don't do that anymore because they understand, okay,
that's the boundary. That's the line. And the more that they see the culture that is there, and we want to continue to keep that culture of being that this is the standard of Highway Kids, and being able to, and communicate that to parents as well too, I think is huge. And the other thing I'll just say on that, communicating, I think that if you like keep that communication open, even when it's smaller things, then it's easier to talk about something that's a bigger thing. And sometimes we fall ourselves, like we put ourselves into a trap of being like, oh, it's fine, we could put it up, we can deal with that, we can deal with that, we can deal with that. And we don't want to have that conversation with a parent. And then it becomes a bigger issue. And it's so much harder to go to a parent and be like, they actually smashed a wall. You know what I mean? Like when you go crazy, like, or we actually
none of the kids have hair left because your kids pulled the hair out of every job.
Or you've got to call them in the middle of a service and have them come pick them up, and then you're like, well, actually, you know, they're like, well, what happened? It's actually been happening for weeks, but there was no, you know what I mean? Whereas if you've just been not in a terribly negative way, just going, hey, this was a bit of a struggle today, or this was whatever, just even if it's just in passing, if you ever do have to, you've got that relationship where that parent knows, okay, I've heard these things, you know what I mean? I know what's been going on, and I still, you know, like I have that confidence in you, then it makes it easier to.
And like I said at the start of this, like those hard moments can turn into the most positive ones.
Yes.
And I feel like I've got such a special relationship with some of those kids that, you know, you've had a bit of a war with in the past. A war, that's probably not right. But you know what I'm trying to say? Like, you've had, like, they were behaviourally, you know, misbehaving. And then you worked through that. And now they're just like your best friends.
Yeah,
like,
and they respect you the most because that you took the time to actually address that behaviour. And even in the moment, it might not be pleasant. But it's the same with the kids. If you actually take that time to find out what's going on and why this is occurring and do that with the kids and the parents, it makes that difference of being like, oh, okay, you know what I mean? They care. They actually, you know, are willing to put time and effort into this, which is huge.
All right, primary. What time? Oh, okay.
School age.
We're gonna smash through primary. We're gonna do this. This is gonna be rapid. But I feel this conversation has been really cool. I've really enjoyed this.
And I think it applies to all of them.
Yes.
What we just went into, the whole
100%.
Communicating with parents. That's not just for younger age. That is
that applies 100%.
Well.
Okay, connecting, loving upon primary age or school aged kids.
Yes.
Okay, a few things I want to touch on here. This is the age where kids need to feel like they belong. It's so critical that they feel like they belong. So while in earlier childhood, it's important for parents to feel safe for their kids and they feel like they belong in that sort of sense.
Yes.
And kids will still make friends in those age groups. I'm not saying they won't. But the value on will I go to church today for school-age kids is, do I have friends at church? Do I have friends? As in, do I have friends in leaders? Do I have friends in kids? Let's unpack creating senses of belonging, creating spaces where kids can belong. Once again, we talked about fundamentals earlier, remembering names. So let's start with leader to kid. Start with leader to kid, and then we'll then go from then building kid to kid. So as a leader, remembering names, I think is really important. There's name tags there, but the more you can remember kids' names, that's just so key. That's like the access code to a kid. You know, like, it sounds weird, but like, you know, if you know something, that is just such an instant, okay, we're on the same level. I even like to, like, when remembering kids' names, this is going to sound bad, if you can make a joke, a nickname, that's better. Make a joke of the kid. Make fun of kids. Like, you know, I've got some kids that I call by their last name collectively. And they find it the funniest thing ever. that's not their name, but like
Yeah,
that's
yes.
and for a long time, then the thing I had to then unlearn was what is their actual names because
yes.
I have just called them their last
Altogether,
name.
yeah.
So yeah, get to know kids, know what grade they're in, know what they like, know what they do they like video games? Do they like a particular sport? Do they have different hobbies they like doing? Like, who are their friends at school? Like, all these things. Getting to know those things, and then also, this is where, as a school age leader, being aware of that world. So, for example, good example of this is, let's say Minecraft. I am not good at Minecraft. I've played it a few times for the YouTube channel. I suck. I suck so much at Minecraft. But so many kids love Minecraft. So I have made it a mission for me to know at least enough about Minecraft to carry a conversation.
Yep.
It's like, oh, what do you think about, like creepers? That's a terrible example. Everyone,
So
I did not just show
if you
off.
don't know what that is, maybe go and say some Minecraft.
Or if it's a YouTube, if a kid's really into YouTube and you're like, oh, what, like, have you seen the latest Mr. Beast or Dude Perfect video or whatever, and having a conversation around that. Knowing kids' worlds, like Dave Wakely at KidShaper a long time ago now, but he spoke a message about how we as kids leaders, we're missionaries. So we need to know the lay of the land.
Yeah.
So we need to know what kids are into. I know Jace Van Vuren, another kids pastor, he used to go through Mr. Toys World occasionally just to check what toys were going off.
Yeah.
Like, what's in at the moment? These are the sort of things, like if you play the games or just understand the world that kids live in, I think that helps you have those conversations too.
Yeah. And even if you haven't, getting the kids to teach you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Kids always want to be the expert on something. You know what I mean? So even sometimes, because I'm like, I'm not always up on, and I have a child who's
cool
into
and
the
hip.
YouTube. I know. I know. I've accepted that I'm old now. But being able to be like, okay, I actually don't know that much about it, but can you tell me? And then next time, then I know that. You know what I mean? Or I can use that for another kid and be like, actually, I don't know that much about Minecraft or whatever YouTube it is. Can you tell me about it? You know what I mean? And then being able to ask questions and, that creates connections as well because you care enough about their world and you're working to learn. So I think that's cool.
Yes. Next thing I'd say is, so in all of our kids' rooms, we have stations in free time, connection time. Those stations are intentional, so there's a leader at each one.
Yes. And free play is so critical and intentional, but it's also the thing that I think we sometimes skip over when we're thinking about our service.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the service to start.
Yeah, it's
like,
not just killing time, and sometimes it's so easy to fall into that, or we're prepping something else, or we're doing something else, but the free play, like free time at the beginning of that service is such an important part for creating those opportunities and those spaces for connecting leader to kids and kids to kids is such a,
I'll put it this way. If like we start check-in half an hour before the service starts, if every single kid arrived half an hour before the service starts, I would still run the same amount of connection time. We're not just waiting for everyone to arrive and, now we can get the service started. It's, okay, we're going to spend time intentionally connecting with kids.
And that's what brings, you know what I mean? That's what kids need, like you said, in that age group. And it's also what then helps us with the rest of the service, particularly if we're talking about relationships between kids, leaders and kids. That is going to be what carries the rest of your service. That's going to make the difference between whether you've got a bunch of kids rowdy and carrying on in the middle of the service and you ask them to stop and they listen or they don't. Like that connection fuels all of that. So if you've connected with those kids at the beginning of the service and they're actually listening to you because you've listened to them, the rest of your service is going to be so much better. So when we do go into praise and worship, they're going to actually be engaged and go, okay, this is what we're doing now. If they've connected with other kids wwho then have the culture of Highway Kids, they're going to be like, okay, this is what we do now. If we don't utilize that, sometimes it's like, hitting our head against a brick wall when it comes to some of these other elements, because kids don't listen to people they don't have a relationship with. And whether that's society now, but like you don't have authority from the position that you have anymore. You carry it from the relationship that you've created with kids. So just because you're a leader in a room doesn't necessarily mean that kids are interested in what we have to say. It's almost like we have to earn that position.
Unfortunate, but yes.
Yes.
Okay. I really like that. Next thing, I'm not sure if this is a weird tangent, but I'm going to say that this is. I'm just thinking about how I go about connecting with kids. Gamify the stations. So gamify the free time. For example, let's say you have a handball station. Make it a challenge, like as in sometimes when you're playing handball with kids, you go light. Sometimes I go all out, and it's like the game is beat me.
Yeah.
Right? And then that creates like a fun atmosphere, like, like, come on, we can do it, we can beat Brendan, like, and it's not like pick on one kid, it's not like beat that one kid, it's beat me. I don't really care, like, I don't really have feelings attached to it.
Might bond the other kids together.
Yeah, exactly. You're literally bonding the other kids to beat you, like, instead of just having like the Nintendo Switch playing, what if you turn it into a tournament and get a whiteboard out, like I've seen, like leaders, I've done this before, but it's like, all right, we're gonna have like, brackets and you're gonna versus who, do you ever say like gamify the things to who can make the longest loom band? I don't know, like I don't know how to gamify loom bands, or craft, but you know, saying like I've done it with Lego before though. It's like okay, you've got like 1 minute challenges, like that's always really fun. Where it's like okay, we're gonna make all of us are gonna have 1 minute to make something around a beach, and you got to make something really quick, like those things. When it's not just okay, we put stuff out, go play. It's let's gamify the things we have and bond kids, even team up kids, those sort of things really help build connection.
Particularly for those kids who struggle, and I know if we go into like also our responsibility of, being able to get kids to have relationships with other kids, like there are kids who just don't know how to integrate into that or don't know, you know what I mean, who don't know anybody there and just sitting next to somebody at a Lego table, it might not necessarily actually have any connection, but if you're able to include them in a whole group of people who, are all in, then suddenly they become a part of the crew and they find an easier time to... Even
like when they feel like they're a part of the in-joke.
Yeah.
Because they saw it happen and they were part of it, So let's talk about... there's so much to talk about. I love this. But let's talk about connecting kids to kids in school-age programs. Great example with the Lego example. We're going to do like a 2-minute challenge, but you're going to break off into twos. Yeah. You're going to do it together. When you gamify things, or even if you're just connecting with things, just make it that kids have to not just react with you, but connect with each other. That was sorry for anyone who's not watching this. I feel like I just did a very Donald Trump hand gesture. Like, together, apart, to me, like, it was just very, like, I don't
know what happened there.
You get what I'm saying? Like, it looked very Donald Trumpy. Anyway. Not getting distracted at all.
Not at all.
I just felt...
but I think also, like, knowing your kids then helps this as well, too. Because if you know that there's a kid who's into Minecraft and and a group of boys who are also, it makes that bridging that easier. Like once you get to know these kids, you can help them to connect with other people or be like, oh, okay, have you played this game on the Switch? All right, let's get them in. And utilizing the kids that we know in our room, who we know are going to be able to embrace somebody and get them in, or knowing what school they come from, like I had one on Sunday and they were like, knew someone from school and it was like, great. But even if they didn't, it's like an opportunity to connect. Like they went to, the school that my child goes to. So I was able to be like, oh, what class are you in? They're in the same grade, but they didn't know each other, but I still was able to have that connection. So when you know those things about them, it's easier to connect them in with other kids, because if you have a kid who, just likes to draw and you're like, get in there on the Switch. Like, and they're like, that's not, but that's not going to be helpful. But if you can help them connect to other people, either their age or who have the same things in common, it's going to be a much easier integration into...
I feel like I got a speed run for the rest of these, like the service structure. But, okay, really quick. Our role as a leader, any leader, is to be 150% of what you want to see in the kids. So so if you want to see kids connecting with each other, you got to be actively just pairing kids together, right? If you want to see kids feel connected during, as in get involved during praise, you need to be jumping higher than any kid. You need to go on. If you want to hear kids singing in worship, you got to be raised in your hands, like going 150% over and above. If you want kids listening during the teaching or the videos, you need to be sitting next to those kids. Mm-hmm. Not just sitting at the back of the room, but sitting next to those kids, or reacting to the jokes, laughing at the jokes, or just even responding, like, yeah, that's good. Like being what you want to see in the kids, I think is really important. So that was my really fast way of transitioning through the service to small groups. Okay, small groups is going to be its own podcast.
Yep.
That's just, it will be. Yeah, we don't have time. But my goal with small groups is that kids, because essentially, the way we structure our school-age kids now, is that you can be in the same small group, essentially, from when you're in prep to grade 12, because it's just going to flow through to youth as well. So we want these small groups to be so strong that imagine the strength of them by the time they're 18, that you've just done your whole journey with all these people that are your church family. So I think we have to honour those. And yeah, I reckon we're just going to have to do a separate one. Because there's just so much in small groups.
Because I think, they're, like, is it going to be your best friend in working with these age groups, being able to have those kids connect to each other and connect to you as a leader. Once you have them connected in a small group leader, not only does it mean that they've got someone that they know and they can identify when they walk in and you know them, it's also a smaller pool for once you get to some of those rooms. Like you're talking, if in Prodigies, we might be talking, or early child, 15, 20 kids. When you're talking in a primary room, you might be talking 40 to 50 kids. So one person can't do everything, but breaking it down into that small groups makes that focus smaller to go, okay, I run grade 2. So when I see grade 2s come in, those are my people. You know what I mean? That's who I'm looking for. And then how do we encourage the kids to also be on that and be welcoming and be noticing? So the kid, this kid's in grade 2, so I know all my other kids to introduce them to, to create that atmosphere of no child being missed.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. I just feel like there's so much to say. But I honestly think if you just take on a lot of the things we've talked about today.
Yes. It's just a smaller version of
It's a smaller version of that.
There'll be more to
if you know kids' names, if you know about them, if you know how to connect the kids to you, and you know how to connect kids to each other, then the mechanics of a small group we can talk about later. But if
small groups is how you work all of those things. Use your small group time to create those opportunities and to
for sure
to take all that
and then to activate kids' faith as well. Yeah. Because we're not just connecting to discipleship isn't just about connecting friends together. Discipleship's about becoming more like Jesus.
Yes.
But the reason we connect is because church is a community.
Yes, and that's the first thing that will bring you in. So if you connect kids relationally to each other and leaders in a church family, then them connecting to God is going to be that much easier. Because we always talk about connecting with people is going to be the thing that carries you through this journey with God. There's so many ups and downs throughout this journey, and people stick in it because they have people encouraging them, because they have a community because particularly for kids as they start to develop their own faith and figure things out, they go through all of these stages with God where their relationship can be different, but if they have that connection to a church and a community and to people, that's what's going to hold them through it and be able to really develop in their faith.
Yeah. All right. Well, to go back all the way to the start, that family that came, they've been for 2 weeks, feel connected. I think, and our job's not done with our family either. We're not like, oh, all good, fantastic, we did it.
2 weeks in.
Nice. That's only the first step. And back to our ministry life cycle, bringing is the first part. Then we got to build up, then we got to train up, then we send out. The whole thing goes over again. So I just want to encourage us that everything you're doing at the moment to help kids and families feel known and loved, it's great. Thank you for everything you do. But we just want to get so intentional with those kids. And
because it makes a difference. And we always say, we don't always see that. You're not always going to realize that when it comes to working with kids and working with families. You're not always going to have, as us as team members, are not always going to have the conversations that you do with a parent or hearing from leadership or hearing those things. And that's why we share it. But we might not see that, but it matters you know, it's a huge influence on people, and the little things, build up, and that's what,
Yeah. So exciting times. I hope this inspired you with the areas that you're leading within our kids ministry. We're so excited with what we get to do. If you're listening to this when it comes out, we have our team weekend coming up on the 27th and 28th of September. And we have Harry Slade coming and speaking.
awesome.
It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. So if you haven't yet, please register via the link I've sent you already, or by the invitation card that I gave you. And we'd love to have you there. It's got all child minding is provided, all food is provided, everything. Holy Spirit's provided. Yeah, that's for free.
But no, it'll be such an amazing time for us to have more of these moments and to be able to, you know, come together as a team, encourage one another, and really, you know, be able to take on stuff to carry us through. And continue on with what we're doing.
If you'd like to hear us talk about a specific topic as well, either put it in the comments if you're on YouTube, or just send it through to kids@highway.com.au. That'll be fun. If you just send it through, if you have something specific that you want us to talk about and unpack on this team podcast as well, we're dropping it once a month. We promised last month to have a guest.
Did we?
We had a. There is a guest. You
remembered our promise.
Donald Trump was.
Just keep.
Hey everyone, so good. I'm not sure if that's going to age well. There's an election happening at the moment. I'm not sure if it's going to age well.
It's going to be done by the time this comes out.
I don't know. Hey, I'm in New Zealand at the moment, aren't I?
Yeah. Yes, you are. When this comes out, are you
where I
enjoying your
am.
trip, Brendan?
How am I doing on my trip?
You ready to come home yet?
Look, probably. Actually, you know what? I think on this day I'm in Hobbiton.
Right,
yeah,
so
I'm having a great time. I'm having a great time today.
But thanks to the team that's holding it down.
Yeah, holding it down. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll catch you on the next one, and I can't wait to serve with you again very, very soon.
Great.
Bye.